So where do you want me to start? Just from...
How you doing? This is Neo. This is part one of How Did It Happen? How Did It Happen? This is Mo. He go by Sean on the street. We just want to know your story.
Yeah.
And you know, people done went through a process for this to happen, for this to even occur.
That's right.
So we just want the people to know, you know, ways and steps that they could take so this won't happen to them in their life.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So if you
Gotcha.
can just explain to the people what happened, your story, just from the start, just so
All
they
right.
can understand what's going on out here.
Basically, if I was to try to explain exactly what my current situation is, I would have to go all the way back to my conception. I was the product of a rape. My mother was date raped at the age of 16 by someone she trusted, and she did not want to keep me. She did everything that she could to abort me, but her mother forced her to have me. She was 16 at the time. 1 year later, she passed away. So she's 17 years old with a baby she did not want. The father did not claim me, and she was already abused and had issues from her childhood, and so she turned to drugs. And I looked just like them. So I was left with a whole lot of people. So psychologically, emotionally, and physically, I was abused my entire life. I went to 9 schools in 4 different counties to complete the K through 12 process. So I don't have any long-term or long-lasting or long-existing friendships or relationships. So I never developed that skill or cultivated that. And it left a major scar on me psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. The physical scar is healed, but in our community, if you're not aware of it, we don't go lay on the couch. We don't go share our problems. We don't, call ourselves crazy. We don't even acknowledge it. We just swallow it. And so I kept living and kept growing. So at the age of 17, I graduated at 16. I graduated from high school finally, and I began my career. The only thing that kept me or sustained me throughout this process was everywhere I was, I found a way to get to church. And so I've been in church the entirety of my life. And at the age of 17, we had an uprising that took place in '92. And at that time, I was a member of First AME Church. It's the oldest black church in Los Angeles. It's predominantly really politically connected. We received a lot of grant monies, and one of the first grants that we received was AIDS education and awareness. That was my first job. So I went out and I gave presentations on AIDS prevention to high schoolers and junior high students. And from there, my career started in church, and I began to work as an administrative assistant. Finally, I received a call to ministry at the age of 18, and I was ordained at the age of 21. At 25, I decided it was time for me to get married. I met a wonderful young lady, and she actually said yes. Couldn't believe she did. And I began a family. Now, for me, psychologically, this was my attempt to make up and to have what I never did have as a child, which was a family and stability. And after 5 years of marriage, I finally ended up, we had our first child, and 2 years later we had our second child, and they were both sons. And I participated in the PTA. I was working. I had opened up a church, and I was singing. I was doing praise and worship. I was in and out of the studio, very productive. I had transitioned from administrative assistant to become a grant writer and grant compliance officer. So I learned a lot of skills while I was there with the nonprofits. And my life was going great. We stayed together for 10 years, but throughout the marriage, there was this lingering baggage that I had that had never been addressed. And I suffer from depression. So about 4 years into the marriage, I started self-medicating with marijuana. And I mean, like heavily usage, because I was so depressed, because I couldn't give my wife everything that I wanted to be able to give her or provide for my family like I wanted to be able to provide. And I did not share, I didn't open up with her. And our relationship began to disintegrate to such an extent that she filed for divorce. And 10 years into the marriage, we had a divorce. Well, at this point, I had been in the house with my children the whole time, And just the mere thought of me being outside of the home and away from a family again, it was my last attempt, and it was all that I ever wanted in this life, more than anything else, even more than ministry itself. And I loved ministry, was to be able to have a family and make it work. And when it didn't work, I had a psychological breakdown, and I ended up trying to commit suicide a couple of times, and I ended up being committed into a psychiatric hospital. And I stayed there in and out for about 2 years. Then I finally got out, and we went through all of these different medication cocktails to try to find out what would work.
I don't mean to cut you off. How did you try to kill yourself? How did you attempt suicide?
I attempted several ways. The first way was I took a lot of pills, about 20 to 30 pills, whatever was in the medicine cabinet. I took that. The second time I took some floor cleaner and some other cleaning products, Pine Sol or whatever else, and I made a concoction and I drank it. The third time I placed myself in a tent, and I set off some foggers, that you fumigate your house with, and none of the attempts worked. Somehow I ended up surviving. The last attempt, I took about 20 to 30 sleeping pills, and that didn't work. And so they committed me, and I ended up getting out and tried to get my life back together. But I never addressed the real issue, which was my childhood and the healing process for myself and my self-worth, my self-esteem, and the lack of family. No brothers, no sisters, no long-term relationships. I just felt lonely in this world, and it was very difficult. I would see people walking past with their family or with friends or with their children, and I just would begin to cry and begin to bawl, and until I went to the psychiatrist and I actually started seeking help. But at this point, I was still working when I came out, but my visits to my children was very limited. And then my ex-wife got remarried, and when she did, it was the breaking point for me. Depression really set in, and I had graduated from just hitting weed. Then I was now sprinkling the weed with cocaine. And once I did that, it was basically over. I didn't want to do anything else, but I wanted to stay high because I didn't want to deal with life. I didn't see any hope. I didn't see a outcome that I could receive, because there was no way that I could bring back those years or make up for what happened to me in this life, and so it was no point in me continuing on, and I gave up. I even walked away from church, and I had been in church again my entire life until I was 35. I mean, in church, like not only working for the church, but actively participating in Bible study, at choir rehearsal, at praise team rehearsal, every conference. I was there, and my whole life was church, and that was it. And I walked away from that also, and I just gave up. And so what happens when you don't pay your rent? You get evicted. So I got evicted, and here I was out on the street and didn't have a means to keep my medication regimen up as far as my psych meds. So then my psych issues became worse. After you take the medication, you can't come off of it. You have to either wean yourself off, but if you try to do a straight cut off of any type of drug, it will leave some effects on you. And so it was very difficult.